Welcome to the Sports Entrepreneur Show powered by the Ninja Zone, the only podcast for sports entrepreneurs that gives you an inside look into what it takes to turn your passion for sports into a business. Hey there, sports entrepreneurs. Casey here, and in this week's episode, I am talking all about work-life ROI. Sometimes people call it work-life balance. I'm calling it work-life ROI. That's return on investment. The word balance has always confused me. It always made me feel like I could never get it right, because to me, balance is 50-50. So if you've always been confused by this work-life balance notion and what that means for you, that's what we're going to talk about today, and it's a good one. Enjoy. Hey, sports entrepreneurs, Casey here. I'm excited about today's episode, guys, because we are going to talk about work-life balance. And I've, told you about myself, but I am a mom of 4, 2 kiddos of my own and 2 bonus kiddos. And then my husband and I both have lots of business kiddos. Some are business babies and some are business toddlers and some are business teens and early adults. But all of these little companies, as you know, act as children as well. So the concept of work-life balance has always really baffled me. When people say, well, do you have work-life balance? And it's like, wait, balance. And in my head, that term balance kind of means 50-50. I picture these the scales of justice, and it's like work over here and home life over here. And it doesn't make sense. It's never made sense. It didn't make sense to me as a child when I grew up in a family-owned business. And as I got older and started, creating my own life, I realized that I wanted to create a business where I could integrate my family. And that's why, especially with not only integrate my family, but integrate my passion. I mean, that's why I do this podcast. It's called The Sports Entrepreneur, so you can take your passions and create a business out of it. But what if you could integrate everything where all pieces of your life are working for each other and not against each other? And that's what I've always tried to do, right? If there's an initiative in my business, it's usually helping me at home, or it's been stemmed from something that is at home. I just look at what matters to me and how can I get the most out of my resources, right? And if everything is separated if it's completely separate and it's balanced, I'm not going to be able to utilize my thought and time and resources on multiple pieces of my life. So, work-life balance, let's nix that term. Think about it like this. We're going to call it work-life ROI. Return on investment. What is the return on investment that we get out of different pieces of our lives during different phases of our lives? So what I mean by that is this. Picture your life as a pie. Everything you think, do, say, go about in the course of a day, and you have your life pie. This is, for years and years, personal development people have called this the wheel of life, I think is what Tony Robbins calls it. But basically, at any phase of your life, you're going to have different sections of this pie. And those sections could be health. Those sections could be, skills you're building for a career. Like if you're in school, the section could be just family, could be marriage. It could be financial, right? How are you setting yourself up for the future? It could, if you have your own business, which I'm assuming you do if you're listening to this, that area has sections. So think about it as a pie. And I've noticed as I've, gone through my life, in different phases of my life, the pieces of the pie change. When I was getting married and starting a family, that piece of my pie was bigger, right? So in order to say, or for people to say that each of those pieces is going to be perfectly balanced is just not realistic. But think about those pieces of the pie as individual bank accounts. So instead of a pie, we have these individual bank accounts. And at any given time in your life, those individual bank accounts are going to have a different rate of return. And I hope this is as exciting for you guys as it is for me, because when I thought of this, I was like, whoa, yeah, exactly. That's what I've been trying to say. You're going to have different rates of return for different things at different points in your life. So what that means is if you have a certain area of your life which is reaping a high rate of return either immediately or for the future, that's going to be something that you want to spend more time and resources in making sure that you're getting the most out of that piece of your life. My kids are sponges right now because they're young. They're absorbing me. They're absorbing my information. I want to make sure I have a high rate of return in this point of my life as a parent. Okay. My son and daughter at 7 and 9, they like hang on my every word. I know this is not going to last. Right. So I want to make sure that I'm heavy into that piece of my life because there's a high rate of return right now, right there. As they get older and they become more independent, and what I say and the time that I'm able to be around them is less, I'm going to have less of a rate of return. Say another one of the bank accounts is career. Depending on where you're at in life and depending on how important your career is to the rest of the picture, you're going to have a different rate of return at different times in your life. Me now at 40 years old, I'm not trying to build my career. But at 25, I absolutely was trying to build my career. So I had a much higher rate of return when I was younger because I hadn't built it yet. So that was the time where I really needed to put more time and energy into packing in as many work hours as I could. And again, guys, this is just one girl's opinion, but this is just kind of how I've seen it. Another bank account that you would have is your health. As we get older and things start to break down a little bit, it may be much more of a priority to make sure that your health is on track. Not that we shouldn't be doing it our whole lives, but when we're younger, we have a little bit, maybe a little more energy, a little bit better ability to heal or bounce back from things. As we get older, that may have to have higher priority because we need that rate of return, because we need our health to be able to execute on the other bank accounts and the other areas of our life. All right, so I hope this is making sense. I want to take it one step further and I want to talk about minimum balances. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. All right, so you have all of these bank accounts and you have all of these different sections of your life. And I think this is where, when people talk about work-life balance, this is what they're trying to say, is they're saying that you don't want one side to completely take over the other side. That makes you don't want to work 90 hours a week and never see your children because you're going to damage the other pieces of your life. And that's absolutely true. So this is where I want to bring in minimum balances. So at a bank, you typically, when you sign up for an account, let's just say it's a savings account, a checking account, whatever, you have to maintain a minimum balance. And we are going to create the parallel that the minimum balance is your minimum standard, right? Some people carry higher minimum balances than others. And think about this as it applies to your entire life. Home, marriage, business, work, we all have different standards. I've talked about standards on other podcasts. I've talked about rocks. What are your standards? where's the lowest you can go and where's the highest you can go. Another word for this is baseline. What is your baseline? Typically, if you're a woman, you have a weight on the scale that you do not go above. Once you hit that number, you're like, oh boy, time to kick it into gear. So at least I do. So that's a baseline, or that is a minimum balance, right? Now, if I am at a point in my life where I really want to kick that into gear because I believe that there's a high rate of return if I can amp up my health, let's say that what's going to happen there is I'm going to raise that minimum balance. And hopefully, if I'm going to continue to grow in each of these areas of my life, I'm not going to drop back and my minimum balance is higher. Let's talk about your financial life and how there really is a minimum balance. I remember the times where I would get up every day and I would look at my checking account and make sure there was enough money in there to cover bills that were coming out next month. Basically, I was living check to check. It's been a long time since that's happened, but I think a lot of people are there. There is a minimum balance. What's your minimum balance? And how would you feel if you were able to grow to the point where your minimum balance was high enough that you never, ever, ever, ever worried about bouncing a check? That would be a different standard. So I hope that makes sense. Same thing. If you just go into marriage or time with your kids, what's the minimum balance? How often do you connect? How often do you have conversation? How often do you spend quality time together, without phones, fully engaged? There's a minimum balance there, and everybody has different ones, and everybody has different priorities in their life. And the whole point of this podcast is to try to share the concept that at different points in our lives, we're going to have different rates of return on those different areas. So when you look at yourself and you look at where you're spending time and you look at what you want to accomplish, everything you do on a daily basis, is it reflecting where you're going to get the most value? Where are you going to make the most out of what you've got? How can you take the least and make the most? Right? That's really entrepreneurship in general, guys. It's taking nothing and making it into something, right? So as you look at where you're spending your time and where you're spending your resources, and as you think about now, we're looking into next year, right? Hopefully, if you're listening, you had goals or outcomes that you set for 2019, 2019. And now we're starting to think about, what's 2020 going to look like? Like, I've already got these visions in the back of my head, and it's so cheesy. 2020, what's your vision for 2020? But my husband's an optometrist, so it's all 2020 cheesiness around here. But we're thinking about, what do we want our 2020 to look like? So every year I go through a process that, and I've done this for several years, that I ensure that my work-life ROI, or call it my life net worth, increases, right? Because if we have a life of bank accounts, we want to increase our net worth in every aspect, right? So in order for me to make sure that my net worth always goes up, I have a particular process and system that I go through every single year that I've optimized. And last year was the first year I actually tried it as a workshop, just with some people that I know, see how it went. And it went really, really well. And so this year I plan on taking that I plan on inviting more people into that workshop. And I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work, whether it's going to be a course, whether it's going to be an all-day thing. But let's just say that I do know that it will be between Thanksgiving and in between the week between Christmas and New Year's, probably I think last year I did it like New Year's Eve morning, depending on where it falls on the calendar. We'll probably launch it one of those 2 days. If it's live, I may do a course. I'm not sure. But anyway, you guys, if you are interested in kind of taking this model of work-life ROI and the net worth of yourself, right, as a whole, and making sure that 2020 is better than 2019, like can guarantee it, then I would love for you to send me an email or send an email to the Sports Entrepreneur podcast at thesportsentrepreneur.com. I think that's what it is. Somebody will tell you at the end of this podcast what the email is. But if this is something that you guys are interested, I think I'm really going to try to take it to the next level this year, and I'm excited to share. So yeah, I hope to hear from you guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening to The Sports Entrepreneur, powered by Ninja Zone. Read the show notes, download bonus content, sign up to get the latest updates and more by visiting thesportsentrepreneur.com. And we'd love it if you followed us on Facebook and rated us on iTunes. Do you have a topic or guest idea? Email us at podcast@theninjazone.com. See you next week for more insights, tactics, and tools